have a...
All right, have a seat.
Sure.
This was ordered by my...
Maybe way too much separation.
Try to do things together.
Good evening all, welcome to MNB World Talk Show. Today we have someone who has dedicated many years of her life with her husband to support the small and medium businesses in Mongolia. Where this lady sitting beside me here is Miss Irene Manley, the founder of Mary and Martha Fair Trade Handcraft Shop. Well, my first question directly. Why small and medium businesses? Why do you have to support it? And what's in it for you?
Right, okay, we're supporting small and medium enterprises because the biggest thing Mongolians need are jobs and reliable income. In general, people are struggling to survive, and in the handcraft sector in particular, other businesses tend to work on consignment. That means the artisan gets paid after the shop sell the products. So in general, people do well in the summer months, and over the winter, they make no income at all or hardly any. So we run with a different model completely. So what we do is we contract with the artisans, we buy all year round, and so we own the products, we take the risk. People know what they're doing in their lives because they have a contract with regular planned production, and that makes a big difference to families. It makes a difference to individuals and small organisations, cooperatives and companies. So what's in it for me? Good question.
What's in it for you? You've been doing it for the last 12 years.
I think for me, what really is in it is seeing people's lives changed. That really makes a difference. So what we see is people over the years start making better products. We start selling more products. They have more confidence. They can make different choices in their lives. And generally, families get moved further back from the edge of surviving to having a more sort of stable existence. No one's getting rich. No one's ordering their Land Cruiser, but it does make a difference.
It does make a difference in a small steps. Interesting part about the shop that you run was fair trade. Well, let's skip the handcraft, but fair trade, what does it mean?
Yeah, what we actually now call ourselves fair trade and ethical. And what it means is we conform to the 10 principles by the World Fair Trade Organization about how we work mainly with our artisans. We also work with a group called Unashamedly Ethical, and that's again more about doing the right things. So things like we say that we won't get involved in corruption or pay bribes. We will treat everyone fairly. We will behave openly, transparently. We will work on training and developing our staff and our artisans. We pay everything promptly. So things like the artisans, when they start with us, many artisans we give a deposit to so that they can start to make their products. And when they deliver their products, we pay within 3 days of doing quality checking. So there's no questions of people being paid. We're transparent. Everyone gets paid through bank accounts, and everyone that we work with, the artisan side, all give us IBARIMs, and we try really, really hard to
fair
get
way of running business, I'd say,
Yes.
and with a world standard.
Yes.
Well, let's take a look at short introduction about her background. Who is she on papers? Well, fair enough. Interesting. So you came to Mongolia 17 years ago. It's not a very short time.
No, it's a very long time. There've been lots of changes in Mongolia in 17 years. So I came with my husband. I first visited in 2000 and we came to live here in 2002. At that time, you could cross Peace Avenue anytime, anywhere you wanted to, because there was no traffic. There were a few private cars acting as taxis and buses. In the winter, Peace Avenue was covered in ice and you kind of skated across the road. The ice didn't melt till the end of March. Shops had no adverts. Many of the shops were apartment buildings with metal doors. I used to open all the metal doors to find out what was inside. And you had to remember, okay, second door from the left in this building, that's where I can buy milk. Fourth door along, that's where they have vegetables sometimes. Yeah.
So what about people? What people were like back then?
Yeah, I think...
and what has been changed over the time?
Right. In terms of appearance, many more people wore Mongolian dales in that time compared to nowadays.
In 2000s?
Yes, even in 2000. So not just older people, more younger people. And there were horses and carts going up and down Peace Avenue, camels in the Ger district. People were generous. And I think one of my abiding memories is going to a concert in the wrestling palace, Buchinorgo. And sitting behind an elderly gentleman with many medals on his chest. And bless him, he pulled out a chicken leg from his dell, took a bite out of it, turned round and offered it to us.
So that generous. I mean.
That generous. Yeah. Yes, people were, yes.
So that was the attitude of the society back then.
And I think more people knew their neighbours. We knew our neighbours, whereas nowadays we don't know our neighbours as well. It's a more transient community nowadays.
Okay. What do you like about this modern society? Well, if you compare it to that society we had
I think
17 years ago.
I like the choices people have now. There are many, many more choices in all parts of life. People have choices with education, many more schools and universities, choices of food. There's a far wider choice of fresh vegetables come to the city now all year round. Many years ago, the vegetables got older and tired as the winter went on. Now you can get fresh veg anytime. More people can travel abroad. It's not so impossible in terms of passports and finance. And people have a hope for the future. That I like. Mongolians are full of energy and expect tomorrow to be better. And that's very true of young people today.
For young people today, okay. Well, you had lived in many countries before choosing Mongolia and staying here for forever.
Yes, it feels like the life sentence in Mongolia, yes.
What was the most difficult location you had ever lived before Mongolia?
It has to be our first overseas location. And my husband and I, with our 2 children, moved to the north of the Netherlands. Now, the Netherlands is a small, well-developed European country, and everyone said, oh, that will be so easy. First of all the Dutch people speak English, we'll be home from home. Well, my husband was setting up a new office in a remote part of the countryside, so nobody spoke English. We were the only expats for many miles around. My husband was away a lot of the time, and the children were very little. So first of all, it was hard to rent a house. The house we rented, the family thought I must have been confused with the date. So we moved in, and they hadn't moved out. So we lived with a husband and wife and 3 teenage children for 3 months whilst they were building their house. The village we lived in was a very small village. It was 1 kilometre to the main road, 2 kilometres from that road to the village which had a bread shop. Bread shop. 2 kilometres from that village to the village which had a supermarket. And I learned a dialect called Gronings, because that's what everyone spoke. Gronings.
Okay.
I thought I was learning Dutch. I didn't know I hadn't learned Dutch until maybe, I don't know, 15 years later. We moved back again to another part of the Netherlands, and everyone said, what? What are you speaking?
Wow.
Because it was a very strong, almost separate language.
So you had to drive or walk for 2 kilometers just to get to the supermarket?
The supermarket was 4 kilometres. I had a bicycle with one seat on the front and one in the back. So the two
and you
children,
had
one
the
each
two
side.
children?
The children were 1.5 and 2.5 years old. And I remember it rained every day. I'm sure it didn't. Then I found why the Dutch have windmills, because there was a howling wind almost every day as well.
Oh, well, let's go into the Mary and Martha. How was the idea of opening fair trade handcraft shop in Mongolia born?
Right. It was really born through a small ladies group. I was asked to help support a women's group that were doing life skills, learning about all sorts of things. And that group had been taught to make fridge magnets by Brazilian Filipino ladies. They were meeting in a Scottish ladies' apartment. Everyone was going away, and they asked if I would nurture this group. Well, the fridge magnets were starting to get a little bit more than pocket money. It was starting to get a little bit serious.
Okay.
And one of our principles, myself and my husband, is that we shouldn't work in the black economy. Mongolia needs people to pay taxes, to be in the system, to help develop the country. So as part of working with that group, we said, okay, let's do something legal. And from that, Mary and Martha was sort of born. The idea being that we would buy the products, we would take the risk, and we would support them in developing their products and their little businesses. So first with magnets, then we had a slipper group, then a Kazakh embroiderer, then a home knitter. We worked in our apartment, and we have not a big apartment. We turned the living room into an office and a shop. People would phone us up and say, hey, I've got a visitor. Have you got anything to sell today? and that's what happened. And the name comes from the Bible. And the idea is that Mary and Martha were two sisters.
Okay.
Mary sat at Jesus' feet and listened to him. Martha was concerned with all the practical things, getting food ready. And life has got two sides. It has a spiritual side and a practical side. And it started as women's work. And the names are easy in Mongolian. In English, Mary and Martha. In Mongolian, Mary and Martha.
Mary and Martha. Well, I mean, I'll be honest, I have passed by the shop several times, many times. I've never been in. So let's take a look what's inside this mysterious shop.
Welcome to the Mary and Martha shop. We've been working on these premises, I think, for 7 years now. And in that time, the business has grown incredibly. Nowadays, we work with 30 artisan groups across Mongolia. We think the Mary and Martha work supports about 180 artisans, which is absolutely incredible, really exciting. So what we're really about in this shop is actually we're the engine that keeps Mary and Martha in business. We have got to sell the products because that's what gives the artisans income the next year. And what we're about is selling things so our artisans can have food on the table, choices in their lives. What we want is for the artisans and our staff to be just moved a little bit back from the edge of survival, so that life is not quite so hard. People can afford choices with food. If someone's sick, they can afford medicine. Children have better chance of education. And no one's getting rich, no one's ordering a Land Cruiser, but people have got a little bit more ease in their lives. And nowadays, we hope that people can start to plan long term, not just this season, not just this year, but they can see a future over the next 5 years. And that gives people security to make choices and decisions for themselves and their families.
Oh, wow. Now I feel like I just want to go in there and touch these crafts and, I mean, experience the shop myself.
It's an Aladdin's cave of different areas and different rooms. It's very surprising
Yeah,
inside.
very surprising inside. I mean, outside, very small door
Yeah.
with Mary and Martha sign.
Yeah.
Anyways, have you ever tried doing a souvenir, handmade souvenir,
Yeah.
by
In-
yourself?
In the early days, I used to knit a lot.
Knit,
I
okay.
used to knit with yak yarn,
Uh-huh.
camel yarn, and do hand knitted things. And it became a challenge because, first of all, I needed time to do this, and there wasn't time. I mean, this business has been like growing a child. And when you've got a young child, it needs all your energy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And so I didn't have the time to do things myself.
But you used to do it.
Yes, long
And
time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah, early
But
days.
you are concentrated on the business. You're concentrated on
Yes.
the business. Well, living abroad as a family, and especially for many years, is not a easy decision, right?
Right.
So you are a mother of 2 children. Tell us about your children. Where are they now? Are they in Mongolia? Are they in Scotland?
No, they're not in Mongolia, very sadly. Our son, he's the eldest one, he's almost 37.
Ah.
He lives in south of England, he works in university. His wife is a theatre director,
Oh.
and they have a daughter who's almost 3, the granddaughter.
Granddaughter.
And
uh-huh.
she's the big attraction of life in the UK. And my daughter is 35. She's married to Josh. He is Indian Singaporean, and he works in finance. They live in Hong Kong. And my daughter, as a business, runs a restaurant in Kathmandu.
Kathmandu.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, your family is very global here and
Yes.
there in different countries, and parents are living in Mongolia.
Yes. And I think I'd like to say, in terms of raising children overseas, one of the hardest challenges is that when your children become 18, they become adults. They have no right of residence in the country their parents may be working in. Because as an adult, you have to apply for a residence visa, whatever, on your own merits. And
Right.
so same pretty much internationally. So when our son became 18, we knew he was going to leave and go to university in the UK. And there is no coming back. There is no going home. Because when you're a young adult, you don't have the skill set or the qualifications to get a work permit of your own in a foreign country.
But your children lived in Mongolia?
No, they didn't.
Never?
Never. So, and maybe that's another sadness. We came to Mongolia as a couple, which meant we had lots of energy to put into our work and our calling, but no one knew our children.
Yeah.
So no one asks about our children. No one has any knowledge of them. Our son came out and helped us for 3 months at one point with a computer project, and they visited a couple of times, but they've never lived
But
here.
I mean, who raised them?
I did, with my husband.
I mean, yes, but when they were outside of Mongolia,
Well,
back home.
When they were 18, they had to manage themselves. They have to become adults. It pushes young people to grow up. Unlike
I mean, there's
Mongolian
yes,
children.
unlike Mongolian, yeah, there's this different, you know. I mean,
Yes.
Mongolians tend to live with their parents for a long time. I mean, in Western culture,
Yes.
18, you're on yourself.
Yeah, and many Western 18-year-olds don't have a choice. If you're going to go to university, if you're living not in a big city with a university, you have to travel to go to university. In Mongolia, everything is so Ulaanbaatar centralised, people can stay at home and study whilst living at home. And that's where there's a big difference.
Well, as you know, a video about her first partners, first artists she and her husband collaborated with. Let's take a look at that video.
Meet Doya and Gerlie. Doya and Gerlie are Mary and Martha's first artisans. We met in 2006, and in 2007 we started Mary and Martha, and one of the reasons was to help generate sustainable income for ladies like Doya and Gerlie. And these were the first products, the fridge magnets. Doya and Gerlie have been selling them to other people, and now they sold to Mary and Martha, and we sold for them. That meant we had a bigger market, a bigger audience, and we could keep selling going because they'd sold to all their friends and family. Over time, they developed new products. Gerlie's making queens, kings, and camels. Doya's doing sheep, and also gears. Everyone does gears and maps. And also we developed the angels. They made from broken bottles and with the same magnet material around them. And they symbolise the problems Mongolia has with alcohol that breaks lives. And now Doya can make something new and beautiful to show that there is hope, even in broken lives.
Where lots of change has happened in 17 years. Looking back, what was the biggest and righteous decision you've made
Well,
in your life? I'm talking about the whole, in general.
Oh, absolutely no doubt about that. It was becoming Christian. And I was raised going to church, but I didn't actually become a Christian until I turned 30. And that's when
30?
I was 30.
So you turned Christian
When I
when you
turned,
were 30?
yes.
Okay.
And that was a huge life change. And for me, that's when I discovered that God was real for myself. And for me, the big thing was I could be forgiven. That was huge. I made an awful lot of mistakes, made a big mess in my life. And I thought I'd gone so far that there was no turning back, no turning to God. I was just outside all hope. And then I realised that no one can be so bad they can't be forgiven. And at that point, I put my trust in Jesus, and my life literally turned around. I literally moved from darkness into light. And over time, my whole emphasis in life changed. Previously, my husband and I had been very interested in money, materialism, having things. And you realise that, yes, we need things to survive, of course we do, but they're not the most important thing in life. And actually, for me, I sort of changed what is important to me. And what I really want to do is I want to live a life of love as Christ loved us. Now, how that works out in everyday situations, I don't know. But that's my focus, and that's what I try and remember to do, particularly when things are tough and you've got to make tough decisions.
Okay,
and being loving is not always about being nice and kind.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's about tough love.
Tough love, yeah.
I mean, if you've got kids, you know that. They ask for sweets before their meal. Do you give them sweets? Is it good for them or not?
Yes.
You have to make decisions.
You have to make decisions. You
Yes.
have to be tough sometimes
Yes,
to
you do.
love someone.
Yes, you do.
Have you travelled around Mongolia?
Yes, not so much now. Again, time is a problem, but in the early days, I've been to Bainhonger, Gobi Altai, Bainolgi, Sunshund, Zonhara. Yeah, obviously Tovai and roundabout.
What do you love the most about Mongolia? You've got to love something that, you know, to stay here for 17 years and, you know, deciding your life in here.
Yeah, well, I think, as I said before, it's the energy and the hope for the future. Yeah, and the fact the Mongolians are can-do people. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, basically, if you have an idea or you talk about something, Mongolians will say, "We can do it," and they'll go for it. They don't think about the negative things. Now, sometimes they should.
Okay,
So, you know, sometimes they should.
But most of the time they just go into
They
it,
just go
dive
into
into it.
dive into it and do
Okay.
it. And I find that very energizing. At the same time, I could sometimes cry because you think, this hasn't been thought out at all. There's no plan, there's no resource, there's no nothing. It's all going to go horribly wrong. But in general, Mongolians make it happen. Out of nothing, people make things
Out
happen.
of nothing, with just blind or stupid bravery, or they just dive into it.
Optimism, they dive into it. So, and I think sometimes as Westerners, we overthink things. And I think actually what's really needed is a balance.
It's a balance.
It's a
It is,
balance,
it is.
yes.
In everything.
Yeah, in everything.
Balance. It is.
Yeah.
My last question is about dreams. What is your dream now? And has your dream changed over time?
Well, I think dreams do change. I think it changes with age. Now, I'm almost 60. And so I think when I was 40, I had different dreams. And when you're 40, you're building and doing and very active. Now I'm coming up to 60. I think the dreams are more legacy. It's more about trying to train people to carry on. It's about saying, okay, I can't really see the next 20 years. What my mission has to be is how can I pass on the ethos, the ideas, the thoughts, the dreams, the skills for Mongolians to carry it on and to make it theirs. To take an idea and say, Mary and Martha, this is the idea, generate sustainable income for Mongolian artisans. And also our staff, develop our staff. We tend to forget to say staff because in the early days we didn't have staff. We had one person, now we've got 25. But really for the staff to grow as people, take the idea and to make it theirs.
So that is your dream.
That's my dream.
Today. In a way, it is a goal, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So goals and dreams. And again...
Plans.
Plans, what are they? Yeah. And just...
Well, fair enough. How many years more are you staying in Mongolia?
Oh, now that is a very big question.
That is a big question.
It is a big question.
And my last question it is.
Yeah, and the answer would be, I don't know. There's a couple of answers to that. The first answer is, as long as I'm needed.
Okay.
And that's, in some ways you hope, with the hope and dream, that becomes a shorter time than a longer time. Other things would be, as long as my health holds up. Being old with poor health in Mongolia, with no family around you, is not an easy option.
Okay.
So we will wait and see.
See, go with the flow.
Go with the flow, yes.
Well, thank you very much, and I wish you good health and good luck with all the endeavours of your future. Well, that's the end of our talk. Thank you for staying with Miss Irene and me. Hope you enjoyed our talk. Goodbye until next week.